Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Circling the Dream. Today we're going to talk to Sam Castleton. He's a mixer who's been working across factual, comedy and drama for the last 17 years. We get to hear some of his best studio stories.
This couple getting fruity.
And the importance of taking the greatest care when recording voices.
And it's also... Oh, sorry, just bang the mic.
We also find out where he most likes to mix.
On the loo.
And what he looks for in the perfect soundtrack.
Instant gratification.
Interesting. Is that what gives his mixers a little je ne sais quoi?
I don't know French.
He tells us what he likes.
I love a sweaty man.
And lastly, he tells us about his newly patented method of making sure that older mixers can still hear higher frequencies.
Pubic hair where your bald spot is.
That's very interesting. I must give that a try. Anyway, on with the show, ladies and gentlemen. I give you the joyous creature that is Samuel Castleton. Thanks for doing this. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about how long you've been working in the sound industry?
My name is Sam Castleton, and I've been in the industry for 17 years now.
Oh my God, is that true?
Yeah. I got in, in fact, this is probably quite relevant. Like, I got in so early. I was on a gap year before I went to go do music technology at university.
So how old?
I was 19. I'd just come out of college and I was working at a bar.
Right.
The one thing that's really amazing to me and amazing to most people is they don't know this job exists. And it's the same in I think in many industries, but especially the creative industries, you get these niche jobs. And yeah, I was speaking to Mama Youth Project recently, and I was saying exactly this. They're saying I want to get more people into sound, and they're saying people just don't realise the jobs exist. It's not until you see someone like I did, and was like, wow, fancy that. That looks cool.
Yeah. How did you break in? I mean, you got some work experience, but that's not a job. It's kind of.
Yeah, so I got help getting the work experience with my foot in the door, which is a really crucial step. I then just saw it and was like, yes, this is for me, and just worked really hard as a runner, which is kind of a sort of good and bad thing in the industry, the way the runner system works. So I did the work experience. Someone got promoted at the company I did that work experience at. They called me back a month later, said, do you fancy the full-time job? So I got a bit lucky there. This is one thing now I'm kind of more head of department here, and responsible for people, and I have a team. I notice people come at a runner level who are so skilled, coming out of university, coming from all different places, and they have so much talent. But some of it does go to waste, and the reason is because you need doors to open. So you need to get your foot in the door, step one.
How do you do that, for example? Is it hard?
I would say from being in the role I am now and talking to younger people trying to break in, I would say just network, online, in person more. I think it's becoming more important because so much of just social stuff is online now.
How hard is it to get a job as a runner?
You need to be a good runner. I know it sounds silly,
you were a
but
shit runner, weren't you?
I was good at the start. I was good, and then I mean, really looking back, like I say, I was just so young. I was 19. I was just made a lot of not mistakes, but it was just like a silly 19-year-old, really, and a bit. Immature, I suppose, or not immature, but sort of naive, I guess, to certain things. So I had to learn a lot. Like I said, I was on the bar at a pub before that, so I had just had a lot of banter, which sort of didn't serve me that well, but served me well later on when I progressed.
Yeah, but I mean that getting on with people is a huge part of the job.
Absolutely massive, and this comes back to what I was going to say: is just networking, just. People skills is kind of important and increasingly important.
So when you went in as a runner, were you very focused on sound particularly, or were you open to doing various things?
Initially, I was open to doing editing. I quite fancied that. I did that at college and liked it and enjoyed it. But I was a sound person through and through. Like I was DJing, I was making music, doing electronic stuff, remixing stuff, mastering, which helped a lot. So I knew it, I got sort of. I was really interested in editing. In fact, it was my mentor at the time who was like, "No, you want to get into sound." He kind of
Who
helped
was
me.
that?
Danny.
Because he took you under his wing, didn't he?
I was fortunate in this way that I was surrounded by amazing mentors. I can, like, you're lucky to have one. You know, I had 4 or 5. And Danny was one of those people, like, more importantly, and he was an amazing manager, which is another whole different skill set. And so I kind of, all he saw in me is all he valued in me at that time was my determination and was my drive and my curiosity. And that's all I had at that time. And he saw that and like grabbed it. And now I'm in the position I'm in now where I'm employing people. I also realize how that is just almost number one at the top of the list, you know. He was just brilliant to me and my progression, and you know, he fought for me a lot, you know. So yeah,
Cool.
that was I was surrounded by really good mentors, and that I was really lucky in that regard. And anyone who wants to get into the industry, I would recommend finding a good mentor.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, clearly coming in at 19, you didn't have a formal sound education or a university education, and you've done fine.
Yes.
I mean, it hasn't taken you any longer than anyone else to get to where you're at.
No, I'd say if anything, I definitely profited in time because I was 19. I skipped 3 years of my life and didn't have the student loan to pay off as well, so that helped.
But you work with people who have done that kind of thing.
Yes, I have. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Simon's a good example, you know. It's kind of like,
great.
And do you see any differences between the way that you approach it and he does?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think people coming out of the universities are way more technical than I am, and I was, and I was just self-taught. People who have a formal education, what they get is it's not necessarily the technical knowledge, yada, yada, yada. Of course, that's part of it. But really, it's like you have then a platform to go into multiple different areas in sound, for example, sound just being one example. Whereas I came out of college and I saw this job and was like, I want to do that job. Now, I can't do any other job.
Yeah.
Like, literally, the job is so niche. I'm kind of stuck here, and it's worked out for me, but for other people that might not work out.
Yeah.
So
of course.
I think that really there isn't. I personally don't think there's a wrong or right route or wrong and right answer to that question. You can definitely not have. I'm an example of not having that education in audio and doing very well. But I think also you need to have the right personality. I think that's one thing I had going for me in that regard.
You don't find yourself insecure around people that are kind of formally educated, do you?
No, because the knowledge isn't necessarily needed a lot day to day, 100%. And I just educated myself in things. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know anything about that. I'll look into that. And although I didn't get the deep knowledge, I had enough to sort of get by and understand, you know, what worked and what didn't work, what's wrong and right.
What are the important qualities you look for in a sound professional? Or someone who you can see, because now you're obviously a mentor to other people, but you need to choose well because it's a lot of work you put into someone over the years.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done that a lot. I've done that a lot, and
they move on.
And they move on, yeah. But that's a product of the game. Like I say, these bigger, more senior positions, they don't come up very often, let alone in one company. So I'm comfortable with that. I really enjoy training people up and then just like letting them fly. I love it. I find it really rewarding. And if it's with me, that's great. And that's what I really want, of course. But if it's somewhere else, I stay in contact with them. They're really appreciative of what I did for them. So I get rewarded in that way. I don't think if you want to get to a higher level, especially, the important thing to look for, number one, is that curiosity, is that willing to learn, is that drive and determination. Like, you can't go wrong with that. And so if you don't have that, they're just, to me as a manager, they're difficult to manage. So that just is a bit off-putting. I want to make my life as easy as possible. And like, I want people who can be independent, and I can just give them something, I can go off and do it and come back, and I can give them feedback in that way. But if you want to reach a higher level to the place I am now, is you need to have the technical brain. Like, you need to know how to use the kit, all the audio-based stuff, EQ, compression, etc., etc. But then you also need a marriage of that with someone who's emotionally intelligent. And it's funny how those two characters don't often don't actually combine. You have people who are really technical and engineering, and then you have these people and they struggle with the technical engineering bit. But finding someone who has both, it makes an amazing mixer, because they can run the session, they can handle the technical bits and handle the stress in that way. And someone who's emotionally intelligent or emotive can read people, can understand film and like what the film's doing at that moment, what you're supposed to be feeling, what the client thinks, and getting on with them. Like, it's the combination of those two things which is really important in my particular job.
Would you not agree though that there's a lot of mixers who is very good with the clients and is very good at getting the product, but is utterly untechnical? But you can fill in for those people because they're so good at what they do well. Whereas the people who are very technical, but they don't have the people skills and they're not actually got great ears, there's nothing you can do to help them.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, the emotional intelligence and the emotiveness and those people skills is more important. Yeah. But there are people who have that and don't have the technical skills, but really they're on a tightrope. They're treading a really thin line, and people, and they get caught out, and it's people underneath them who often rescue them. Like, I think it's really important, especially like this is kind of really relevant for someone like me at my age, to stay curious, to stay young, to stay technically on top of things. As you get older, it's really easy to slip away from that, and you got to stay on with your finger on the button technically, definitely, because it just helps everyone. You're right, you can get by with a bit of both, but you're never going to be amazing unless you have both together.
There's always new bits of kit coming along. Do you try everything, or do you stick to your kind of go-to tools?
I try to try everything I can, but obviously the main problem is time constraints, and you really need to explore things sometimes, and so that's tricky.
So you don't have a lot of free time, do you?
Yeah, exactly. And then also, like, the company's paying for it, so I need budget, and budgets sort of come and go. So they're the two things that define how often or how much I'm trying things. But I'm always purposely keeping myself my finger on the button with everything, because I never want to stagnate and I never want to be left behind. And it's very easy to do in any industry that moves very quickly.
So look, talking more about you personally, what's the best bit of advice anyone's ever given you?
I don't think there's one bit of, like, there's just so many small things.
Right.
So I don't really have an answer. I mean, the best thing I can think off the top of my head is just to sort of pick your moments and pick your battles. You might feel quite strongly about many things or disagreeing with someone creatively. And the key is, I think, to just concentrate on the one that you're really passionate about, that's the big thing for you, or that you think will benefit the film or whatever the most, and let the other fly. So really it's kind of, I guess it's compromising, I suppose. And that sounds like strange advice, but I really think that's benefited me in so many ways throughout my life generally. Pick your battles, pick your moments, and meet people halfway.
It's so much diplomacy involved in the job, isn't there?
Diplomacy, and also in a creative industry like we're in, so much of it is just taste. Like nothing, like people get so hung up on is it right, is it wrong? And I think there are some things that are right and wrong, but most things are taste. And I did a drama last year where I'll try and do this really quickly. There's a big reveal moment, and the director said to me, okay, let's go all music, and then when the reveal happens, we go all Atmos. And I was like, okay, cool, did that. And he's like, oh, I'm not sure actually. What about all effects? We build up effects, get all the Foley, get it all crazy, and then go silent. I did that, great, love it. Then the other way around with music at the end. And he said to me after 3 times, like, what do you think's best? And I said, to be honest with you, it's achieving the same thing each time emotionally to the audience. It's just a matter of taste. And it's funny, like people don't want to hear that a lot in our job, but it is the truth. You need to have your own taste and your own preference, of course, and obviously people will listen to that with your experience, but it's also good to remember that it is just taste. As long as it's achieving the same thing, that's the important bit.
What about AI? Is it creeping in? Have you seen anything? Is it going to affect us?
Well, from a sort of sound restoration perspective, it's already here. I think things are definitely going to change. I think long-term, dramatically. Short-term, I think we're probably going to be much less affected than picture will be. AI will be much slower in the sound area. It will probably get there eventually. But one thing I always think we will get to, AI or no AI, is a version of director of photography. This is probably quite niche to my job, but you have a director and a director of photography, someone who's a director, of the way things are lit and the way they look. And they work with the director, of course, but they're his right-hand man in that way. I think we're going to end up somewhere with a director of audio, a director of sound, because that's the important part, really, that I don't think AI can really do. It's like, oh, okay, what's the aim here of sound? What can sound do here? I have directors and people in this room, and I often consider myself a translator. Like they say, oh, can you make that more organic? Put that into an AI bot. What's it going to give you? Whereas I have to sort of translate that to what that means technically. So I consider myself almost like a translator in that way. And in that way, the job's safe, because at least for a very, very long time. And like I said, I think that's maybe where this director of audio comes in. So I think a lot, like many industries, I think AI will replace a lot of the dog's body work or the laborious, easy stuff. But the sort of more important roles will evolve and adapt. And I think that I saw something really interesting online. It said AI won't replace your job, but someone using AI will. And I think that's going to be quite relevant.
I think there are certain people who have this idea that there's going to be a box that's just going to put audio on a mute show, and mixers are going to be gone. Yeah. And the truth is, for a certain type of show, that might work quite well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and this is a bigger concept across every industry. Like, it will replace bog standard low budget things. Yeah. It's not really going to do that for the high end stuff, and especially in creative industries. Like, we're not just the knowledge you learn at university, college, etc. that an AI can just learn. It's creative, and that's something that's really fundamental to the human condition. So it's much more difficult to replace. I think, there's a certain element of, just slap something at it until it sticks, and we do that sometimes. And so that might be something that kind of works maybe. But if directors keep their jobs, then I think people in the sound industry will keep their jobs.
But you are seeing it kind of creeping into a few plugins and
Tools,
and it's good.
Amazing. Straight away, it's changed the landscape with the tools 100%. Like there's, established tools that have suddenly been overtaken by AI tools. So, and this is just the start. So I think it's going to be really, really, really beneficial. Interestingly, we've had this plugin for a few months now, and we've already had 2 notes from clients saying it sounds too clean. Can you rein it back? So
Yeah,
it's funny.
You see, I think there's an obsessiveness about cleaning up dialogue that I really don't like.
Yeah, I agree.
So overblown, you know.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting conversation. I'm in a really unique position. There's where I work on scripted and non-scripted. I work on many different formats, and I'm really lucky, and I love that. And I learn from both sides, and I really hold on to that dearly because I think it's really beneficial. One thing I've noticed is in the scripted world especially, it's much more high-end, but they have an obsession with exactly you said, like just taking out every noise, taking all the life out of the recording. Not everyone, of course. And that there's so much life and detail in that that's really useful and is great and was captured on set, and let's use it and it's real. On the flip side, people get obsessed about what's captured on the mic and on location. But I keep telling people, like, what is on the mic is not true to what was heard on location. Like the mic has its own problems and it picks up its own things and its own character, like wind, distortion, like way more room. Whereas when you're there, you really zone into things. We did a series called Welcome to Earth, and they talked about these sperm whale clicks when you're underwater. And the recordings are just clicks. They're tiny, thin clicks. Whereas he was saying, the director saying, when you're in the water, that you feel it like go through you. And so there's so much discrepancy between a recording and what it is actually sounds like, or more importantly, feels like when you're there.
Doubling back a little bit, what are your 3 favorite plugins?
I'd say Pro Q3, which is from FabFilter, great company.
Yeah,
It's an EQ plugin, but it's just got so much flexibility. It does so much. The EQ sidechains on there we use for ADR and pickups and all sorts of things. It's got the little spectrogram thing on there, which helps just speed things up. Yeah. And just the whole flexibility of it, the way you can shape it, is brilliant. The new AI plugin, DX Revive Pro, is just been a game changer. And RX Advanced, the spectrogram on that, even with the advance of DX Revive Pro, it's still great to sort of get into the nitty gritty. Like, I don't want to change the overall thing. I just want that one bit, to go or to be added. So they're the sort of 3 plugins I use the most.
They're real workhorse plugins. I mean, they're not fun ones, are they?
Well, I don't know. I think they're all very different. Like Pro Q3, like I say, it can just be an EQ if you want it to be, but it can do a lot more. DX Revive Pros is like the results you get out of it are incredible, and it's essentially, I mean, less so with Pro, but it's essentially just one knob, which is kind of like instant gratification, instant results. And RX Advanced Spectrogram is like, you're getting the needle in the haystack. So they're all very different.
Do you have a sound hero? Someone whose work you hear and you're consistently kind of impressed by it or amazed by it, or go on.
Yes. So I work with a guy called Jay Price, and he's just incredible. Like I think also it's really, a lot of the time it's really interesting to see like what people are working with. Like you can watch something and go, oh, the sound on that wasn't very good, but you didn't know what it sounded like originally.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah.
Or the opposite might be true. Maybe it was recorded brilliantly and they've had to do very minimal work, or even worse, made it worse. So working with someone is quite interesting, and also you get to see how their brain works and the way they think about sound in a way that you just wouldn't. And I work with Jay, and I really like I'm on his wavelength in that regard. Like, we're just very passionate about sound, trying to find the thing, like the angle that makes it interesting, that will make it different, or the thing that's interesting that we can sort of bring to the foreground, or to really make the sound pull its weight and really add to the film in a positive way. And yeah, I just love working with him and just like doing ideas and just the passion we have together for sound, and also just the end results, the work, it's just always brilliant. So he's my sound hero. He's just great. And he makes my job so much easier.
Makes you look good.
Makes me look good. Yeah, and we work together really well. Like, he has a lot of really good strengths, and I have a lot of good strengths, and we sort of complement each other in that way, I think. So.
So what bit of work that you've done are you most proud of?
I did two series recently, one called Our Universe for Netflix, one called Welcome to Earth with Disney, and I'd say those were my proudest work. So Our Universe was like a mixer's I mean, well, it depends which angle you're coming from. It's either a mixer's nightmare or a mixer's, like, kryptonite. Like, I was a kid in a candy store with that. So many elements, particles going into the sun, like things panning all over you in Atmos, and the sound really pulled its weight. So I loved that, and I'm really proud of that. Proud of the results, proud of what we did from a concept and an ideas thing, and also, like I said earlier about you don't know how it started. I'm proud of the time we did it in. I had 3 days, and what I did in that time, I'm so proud of myself and proud of the sound editorial team as well. Like, I think it was really, really hard work, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was really rewarding, and I love watching it back and sort of going, yeah, that's cool. I did that.
You mentioned Atmos there. I mean, a fan?
Yeah, 100%. I've got Atmos at home. I think.
How does it translate at home?
Well, obviously not as well in the studio.
No.
But that depends on the kit you have. I've got a sound bar with upfirers, so not great, but you do get it. And it just depends on the content. I think the thing that kind of sucks is that you have to up your subscription. So I went from a Netflix subscription of like 12 quid to now 19 quid to get HDR and Atmos, which is great. But I think it's quite a big financial jump. I mean, if you can afford it, 100% go for it, obviously. And I can afford it, and I watch a lot of television, so that's great.
But having mixed it in the studio, and exactly how things are moving around, and then having watched it at home, does it translate well?
Well, so a lot of the details is lost on my particular system, 100%. But whereas I went to Dolby and listened to it on their KEF system, I was just like, flipping it, this is incredible. That was a home system. It depends on what you're listening to it on. But yeah, I mean, I'd say at my home with my soundbar, it's kind of you just kind of go, oh, that sounds cool,
Yeah. Where's
without
that coming from?
Yeah, or it's something sort of exploding past you, and you can feel it. And often, what's good about my job is, as you know, is that you do it, and then it's out 6 months later. So you have a really good gap where you sort of then you watch it, you forget it, and you watch it fresh. And most of the time, that's a rewarding process. Most of the time. And that was a rewarding one, after sort of like being amazed, but also very stressed, and then watching it back and going, oh, that sounds cool. But you say about the detail, etc. I'd kind of forgotten about the exact details, but I was feeling it when I was watching it, which is the most important thing.
Tell me about something that went wrong in the studio, a nightmare session, or... And don't tell me you haven't had one. No,
I've had lots of small ones, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know if this will make it to your final cut, but I had a female director who I've worked with before, and she's great. And she said, I just need to go to the toilet. Okay, right, I'll see you back in 5 minutes. Anyway, I go to the toilet, open the door on her. She hadn't locked the door. It's on the loo. I was like, oh, sorry. And then I just went and did my business elsewhere. Came back into the room. She's sitting there, and she wasn't making eye contact with me. And I was like, oh, I'll break the ice. And I was like, oh, don't worry. It's happened before. And so that just didn't go down very well. It's just like, I had a good one with David Attenborough where we recorded his voiceover, and he was telling me this joke about when he stayed in Madagascar and he could hear this couple getting fruity in the hut next door all through the night. And he went and spoke to the hotel manager the next day, and when David Attenborough was delivering this joke, he said the punchline in French because they speak French in Madagascar. I don't know French, and he sort of looked at me like, and I had this like split second of deciding whether to go to David Attenborough, like to just laugh or go, oh sorry, I don't speak French. So I just went with the laughing option, but my fake laugh was obviously so bad because he looked at me and went, yeah, you didn't get it, did you? Yeah.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
my
sorts
God.
of fun. I've got a lot of that. Like I say, like my banter is my good and my bad asset. I had an editor recently who I know quite well, and he came in and he'd cycled in, and I saw him and said, oh, good morning. He said, oh, I won't shake your hand, I'm really sweaty. And I went, it's all right, I love a sweaty man. And he looked at me and went,
Favorite films?
I like films with a bit of a twist. So cliche ones are things like Memento and Shutter Island, Get Out, Arrival, Annihilation on Netflix. That was great. There's an old film, I don't know how well it's aged. It was from Tarsem Singh called The Fall. I loved that. That was brilliant. I need to watch that again. Parasite was great for that recently. I loved the Dark Netflix series. Just that was brilliant. Like psychological thriller. I know it's real Marmite. When I say that, some people are like, yes, and other people are like, oh, I hated it. Documentaries, I love Dynasties, natural history thing. There's a one with a chimpanzee, which is just probably one of the best documentaries I've seen.
Do you find yourself listening to the sound when you're watching a film, or do you just get lost in the film?
When I started, I definitely did, and now I just get lost in the film. Like I purposely don't listen to the sound per se. And as you know, like sometimes if the sound sticks out, that's either a good thing or a bad thing.
It's generally, I find that if there's something wrong with the sound, it immediately gets me. You know?
Yeah, well, it depends. It really depends on the content. So like Arrival, for example, I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. I thought the sound on that was fantastic. And the sound stood out in a good way. You know, it's alien sound. So, and you listen to it and go, oh, that's great. And it's really organic and it had this guttural feel and it's just convincing. Whereas obviously we know the bad thing is like when it's not convincing or it's distracting, it takes you out of the watching experience. When I'm training people up, I always use this really embarrassing or sort of cliche term. I say, be a sound ninja, like do it like stealthily, like no one notices, you know, that's the idea.
The job is tough. You live a long way from where you work.
Yeah.
You have a young child. You have a drive and a long train journey. How do you cope with the long hours and
multiple things? I think, like I say, you need the right personality. I'm very driven. I'm very resilient. I'm very curious, and I always like to find inspiration in the job and outside of the job. So that really helps. I particularly with my community, so I need the home set up, and my wife Abby's incredible. She does so much for us and our family, and you know I couldn't do it without her, and I don't think anyone in my position can do it without that support and that person who has your back and does a lot of the nitty gritty. So I think most people who are successful need someone like that. Not all the time, but you know they need that grounding, and it's especially in this job, like you say. There's no I can unfortunately be here as long as the client wants to be here, which can be really frustrating sometimes.
But how do you cope with the physical fatigue? I know you're still a young man, but you know you must get very tired sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, if it's long, I think I'm just generally good with like a long day and a long day. It's when I get to the third long day, you know, up early, like that's when I really start to struggle. And I don't think there's really anything you can do. I mean, it's just human nature. Like you mentally and physically can only withstand so much. Obviously, just trying to stay healthy, you know, with what you eat and with your brain, and you know, making sure I always get 8 hours sleep, basically, like. I guess that's the most crucial thing.
And do you find you can switch off when you get home?
Yeah, 100%. I've always, I think, again, right personality, I've always been good at that. My commute, actually, although it's long, really helps in that regard. I get a good separation and a good distance, and I have an hour on the train to just relax, and I can watch Netflix, I can do research, I can like into the jobs I'm doing, or other read scripts, or I can just like do life admin, my energy bill, or like what we're doing on the holiday that I've booked, or and it's just me time. And it's funny because Abby, my wife, you know, she's full on at home. She doesn't get a lot of her time, a lot of me time. So in some ways I'm lucky. And like people always say to me, how do you do the train? How do you do the train? I'm like, the train's great. But then, you know, you talk about separation and switching off and mental health. Like I live on the coast, like, so I do this long commute, but I benefit so much from it. The results are I have a bigger space down there that I live in, and I live by the beach around nature. I just love it. So yeah.
So what do you see yourself doing in 10 years' time?
Don't know. In my career, I'm always evolving, and I always like to be like, okay, what am I doing now? And usually it's not just like a whole evolution, but it's just like a twist or a slant. Like, okay, I'm going to want to do more of that, or focus more on that, or be more of that. So I don't know. I mean, the industry is going to change probably a little bit as well. Like we talked a bit about AI, see what that does, but other things as well I think are going to happen. And I'll be 50. I'll need to change what I'm doing slightly anyway. So we'll see. I mean, I really enjoyed training people up. I find it really, really rewarding. I'm seemingly good at it. Have had a lot of success stories. So maybe I'll lean more into that. Like I say, I'm doing more managing now as well, which I'm growing into and enjoying more. So maybe I'll just do more of that. I've got a lot of contacts, a lot of clients as well, so I can lean more into. There's lots of things I can do, So we'll see. I've got no idea where I'll be in 10 years' time. Is the answer.
You know, what would you say to someone looking at you and thinking, I want to do what he's doing, and I want to be where he is when I'm his age? What's that piece of advice that you would give them?
Some of the things we just talked about, I suppose. So networking, face-to-face networking, if you can. I think just that just opens up that just increases your luck factor and the doors opening. If the more people you know, and I've seen it firsthand, you know, someone who knows lots of people and has got about them, they're like, oh, I'm looking for we need a junior dialogue. And say, oh, I know this person. Oh, you should check out that person. Like, it's not necessarily, it's not the network, the direct network you make, but the network through that network of that person that knows that person.
But any advice on, for example, you know, if someone wanted to approach you, is there a way of doing it that's going to be more effective? Or is there a way of doing it that's just going to annoy you?
It's interesting, this conversation, because I try to actually protect myself a little bit now, because I do get inundated a bit with propositions and people. And really, I want to focus on my team here and the people who I'm trying to train up here, and that they're my number one priority. But so it's difficult for me to say, because the route is through the runners, and then when you're there, then you know I can get to know you and you can impress me, like I say, face to face that way, and not just me but anyone, and just learn anywhere. So yeah, I'd say it's that people factor, it's those people skills, and the networking. But you know, like the first thing you asked me, and we were talking about Danny, my manager at the time, like he saw something in me. He saw a curiosity, a determination, a drive, and just an enthusiasm. Like that's your base level. You know, there's lots of people like that, and so you don't stand out from the crowd per se, but you need that in order to, like, someone will see that and go, they've got that, okay, tick, you know. And then, like I say, that from there you need a bit of luck, and the luck comes through networking.
Last question. What's your favorite cake?
Cheesecake.
Oh, interesting.
What's yours?
Carrot cake.
Carrot cake's good. Jude, my son, doesn't like cake. I can't get over that. I'm just like, you don't like cake. I know.
Doesn't like any sweet things, or just cake?
No, he likes sweet things. He just doesn't really like cake. I'm just like, how can you? You're a kid.
I
know. Yeah.
Oh well, that's good. That's not the end of the world, isn't it?
No, I know. Yeah, it's better for his health.
Could be worse. He could be a drummer. Well, look, thanks for doing that, Sam. That's really helpful.
No worries. Cool.
You've given me a good idea. I think I'm going to interview Jay as well.
Great. Cool.
I think that's a good, if we can find a spare hour in his life.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that one. There's lots in there for everyone, and thanks again to Sam for giving his time. The next episode is going to be Ben Baird. Ben's a mixer who works across the UK and Europe. He's mainly focused on independent film at the moment, but throughout his career he's done everything from FIFA football games to drama. He really has been there and done it. It's a great interview, full of funny little anecdotes. And as ever, if there's anyone that you'd like me to reach out to, just send me an email. I'm quite happy to speak to anyone. If there's any questions you'd like me to ask, just send them along as well. Until the next time, please hit the subscribe button, please hit notifications, please hit like, and I'll see you for the next episode. Bye.